Turn around and keep your hands where I can see them. Officer Brent Dawson's command cut through the steady hiss of gasoline flowing into the black SUV. Vanessa Carter froze beside Pump 6, one hand near the card reader and the other resting against the cold metal of the vehicle. She had not reached for anything. She had not raised her voice. Yet Dawson stood several feet away with the rigid certainty of a man who had already decided what kind of person she was. Before Vanessa could answer, the convenience store door opened behind him. Valerie Carter stepped into the rain-cooled air carrying 2 cups of coffee, then stopped when she saw her twin sister facing a police officer beneath the white canopy lights. Dawson turned toward Valerie, and confusion crossed his face. The 2 black women had the same dark eyes, the same composed posture, and the same small silver earrings their father had given them years earlier. "Which one of you owns this vehicle?" he demanded. Valerie lowered the coffee cups onto the concrete barrier beside the pump. "She does." Dawson looked at Vanessa's simple navy coat, then at the polished SUV. "One of you is lying." Vanessa's eyes shifted to the red light blinking on his body camera. The camera was active. That mattered. If stories about courage, justice, and people who refuse to surrender their dignity speak to you, subscribe and stay with this story, because what happened next would expose far more than one officer's mistake. Rain drifted beyond the canopy in silver lines, soft enough to hear the distant traffic moving along Interstate 85. Dawson stepped closer. Driver's license and registration. Vanessa moved slowly toward the open front door. "My wallet is in my coat pocket. The registration is inside the center console. Do not reach into the vehicle." She stopped. "Then tell me how you would like me to retrieve it." His jaw tightened, as if her calm response were a challenge. A second officer, Luke Bennett, remained near the patrol car, watching without speaking. He was younger than Dawson, with a clean uniform and an expression that suggested he had not expected the stop to become complicated. Valerie noticed him, studying the license plate. She also noticed the security camera above the convenience store entrance and another mounted beneath the canopy. 3 cameras, 2 officers, 1 unnecessary accusation. "Why are we being stopped?" Valerie asked. Dawson turned toward her. "You asking the questions now?" "I am asking why my sister is being detained." "I never said detained." Valerie held his gaze. "Then are we free to leave?" For a moment, the only sound was the fuel pump clicking off automatically. Dawson glanced toward the SUV, then back at the twins. "Not until I figure out what is going on." Vanessa removed her wallet only after he instructed her to do so, using 2 fingers and keeping every movement visible. She handed him her license. Dawson studied it under the fluorescent light. Vanessa Renee Carter. Virginia address. Valid expiration date. He looked at her photograph, then at her face, searching for a difference that was not there. "Where are you coming from?" "North Carolina." "Why?" "A family memorial." Dawson looked toward Valerie. "And you?" "The same memorial. We are twins." His eyes narrowed. "What kind of work do you do?" Vanessa paused. She knew the question had nothing to do with the registration. "Federal service." Valerie answered just as carefully. "The judiciary." Dawson gave a short, dismissive laugh. "Of course." He carried the license toward the patrol car while Bennett entered the plate number into the computer. Vanessa watched Dawson type 1 character incorrectly. Bennett noticed it too. Neither sister said a word. Seconds later, the screen returned no matching record. Dawson looked back at them with satisfaction. "Just as I thought." Bennett leaned closer to the screen. "You entered a 7. The plate has a 1. Dawson did not correct it. Instead, he turned toward the twins, his hand closing around Vanessa's license. "Step away from the vehicle," he said. Vanessa met Valerie's eyes across the wet pavement. The look lasted less than a second, but both women understood it. "Stay calm. Remember everything." Something had just changed. Dawson was no longer trying to discover the truth. He was trying to make his suspicion true. Vanessa stepped away from the SUV exactly as instructed, her movement slow and visible beneath the white gas station lights. Valerie remained beside the concrete barrier, close enough to see the rain collecting along the edge of her sister's coat. Dawson returned from the patrol car with Vanessa's license still in his hand, while Bennett stayed near the computer screen. "Move to the front of the vehicle," Dawson said. Vanessa obeyed. "Is there a specific reason for this detention?" she asked. "I am investigating a possible stolen vehicle." Bennett looked toward him. "The plate has not been checked correctly yet." Dawson ignored the comment. Valerie picked up one of the coffee cups, but the warmth had already begun to fade through the cardboard sleeve. Their father had always stopped for coffee on long drives, even when no one wanted any. It was one of the small habits they had kept after his death. Only 4 hours earlier, the sisters had stood beneath bare oak trees outside a church in North Carolina, listening as relatives shared stories about the men who had taught them never to confuse calmness with surrender. Now they were 80 miles into the return trip, standing beneath fluorescent lights while a stranger treated every measured word as proof of deception. "You said you work in federal service," Dawson said to Vanessa. "What does that mean?" "It means I am employed by the federal government." "Doing what?" Vanessa held his gaze. "That is not relevant to the ownership of this vehicle." His expression tightened. "You do not decide what is relevant." Valerie set the coffee down again. "The registration decides whether the vehicle belongs to her." Dawson turned toward Bennett. "Run the name." Bennett entered Vanessa's information, then waited as the system loaded. A few seconds later, the result appeared. Valid license. No outstanding warrants. No stolen vehicle report. He read the screen twice before speaking. "Her license is clear." Dawson looked at the result but did not return the document. Instead, he walked toward the SUV and studied the front passenger seat through the window. 2 secured phones rested in the center console. A dark government case sat behind them on the rear floor. "What is in the case?" he asked. Valerie answered. "Work materials." "What kind of work materials?" "Confidential ones." Dawson gave a short laugh. "Both of you have an answer for everything." "You asked a question," Valerie said. "I answered it." Bennett stepped away from the cruiser with the corrected plate result on his handheld device. "The vehicle is registered to Vanessa Renee Carter at the address on her license." Dawson looked at him. "You corrected the number?" "Yes." "Without being told?" "The original entry was wrong." For a moment, Dawson said nothing. The rain whispered beyond the canopy, and a truck passed on the interstate with a low rush of tires against wet pavement. Vanessa watched his face carefully. A reasonable officer would have returned her license, acknowledged the error, and ended the stop. Dawson did none of those things. "Open the rear door," he said. Vanessa did not move. "Do you have a warrant or probable cause to search the vehicle?" "I am not searching it yet." "Then why do you need the door opened?" His eyes narrowed. "Because I need to verify what is inside." Valerie took one step closer, keeping both hands visible. "The registration is valid. Her license is clear. Your partner has confirmed there is no stolen vehicle report." Dawson turned toward her. "Stay out of this. I am already in it." The words were quiet, but they changed the space between them. Bennett glanced toward Dawson's body camera, then toward the security camera mounted above the store entrance. Inside, the clerk had stopped arranging shelves and was watching through the glass. Dawson pointed at the rear door. "Open it now, or I will consider both of you uncooperative." Vanessa looked at her sister. Valerie gave the smallest shake of her head. No consent. No unnecessary movement. No fear offered for him to use. Vanessa faced Dawson again. "I do not consent to a search." The fuel pump beside them emitted a soft electronic beep. Dawson's hand closed more tightly around her license. "Then we are going to be here for a while," he said. Bennett lowered his handheld device, his discomfort now impossible to hide. Vanessa felt the cold air move across her face and understood what was happening. The mistake had been corrected. The facts were clear. Yet Dawson was searching for a new reason to continue, because ending the stop would require him to admit that his first assumption had been wrong. Vanessa kept her eyes on Dawson while her right thumb pressed once against the side of her watch. The movement was small enough to look like an adjustment beneath her coat sleeve, but the device registered it immediately. A silent safety alert traveled through the secured system attached to her federal credentials, carrying her location, the time, and a request for verification. She did not know how quickly anyone would respond. She only knew the signal had been sent. Valerie noticed the movement and understood. Her own phone had already vibrated twice inside her coat pocket. The first alert had been a routine security check from the United States Marshals Service. The second had arrived when she failed to answer it. Dawson saw none of this. He was focused on the dark case visible through the rear window. "Who does that belong to?" he asked. "It belongs to me," Valerie replied. "Open the vehicle." "No," the answer came without hesitation. Dawson gave her a long look. "You might want to reconsider your tone." "My tone does not change the law." Bennett shifted his weight beside the patrol car. "Officer Dawson, the license is valid, the registration matches, and there is no active alert. We should return the documents." Dawson turned toward him. "I did not ask what we should do. I am telling you what the records show." The younger officer's voice remained respectful, but the words carried more firmness than before. Dawson looked back at the twins. "You said the case contains confidential material." "Confidential for whom?" Valerie folded her hands loosely in front of her. "For the federal judiciary." His mouth curved into a skeptical smile. "And you expect me to believe that?" "Belief is not required. Identification is. You have not established a lawful reason to demand professional credentials." Dawson stepped closer to the rear door. "You are making this more difficult than it needs to be." Vanessa answered calmly. The difficulty began when the plate was entered incorrectly and continued after the error was corrected. For the first time, irritation broke through his controlled expression. "You think because you know a few legal phrases, you can tell me how to do my job?" "No," Vanessa said. "Your partner is telling you how to do it." Bennett looked down briefly, then raised his eyes again. The clerk inside the store had moved nearer to the glass. His name tag read Rafael Ortiz, and he held his phone low against the counter, its camera pointed toward the pumps. A middle-aged couple near the air machine had also stopped to watch. Dawson noticed them and raised his voice. "Everyone needs to keep moving." Rafael did not lower the phone. "This is my manager's property," he called through the closed door. "The cameras are always recording." Dawson stared at him, then turned sharply toward Valerie. "Give me the key to the case." "No," "Then give me the combination." "No, you are refusing a lawful command." Valerie's expression did not change. "You have not issued one." Rain struck the canopy in a sudden heavier rhythm, filling the silence between them. Dawson reached toward the rear door handle, but Vanessa stepped half a pace to the side, not blocking him, only making her presence impossible to ignore. "Before you open that door," she said, "state the legal basis for the search." "Suspicious circumstances." "Which circumstances?" "2 secured phones. A locked government case." "Evasive answers." "None of those is a crime." Dawson looked toward Bennett. "Call for a supervisor and tell dispatch we may have fraudulent federal property." Bennett hesitated. "We have no evidence the property is fraudulent." "Make the call." Bennett lifted his radio, but his eyes remained on Dawson. "Dispatch, Unit 12 requesting a field supervisor at Westfield Fuel Station. No active vehicle alert. No warrant. Registration confirmed valid." Dawson's head turned slowly. "That is not what I told you to say." Bennett lowered the radio. "It is what happened." The red light on Dawson's body camera continued blinking. Valerie looked toward it and spoke clearly. "The time is 12:17 in the morning. Officer Dawson has been informed that the vehicle is legally registered and that no crime has been identified." Dawson's face hardened. "Stop narrating." Valerie held his gaze. "Then stop giving me facts worth recording." Dawson stared at Valerie as though her calmness had become the offense. The rain had softened again, leaving only a steady ticking along the metal edge of the canopy. Bennett remained beside the patrol car with the radio in his hand, while Rafael continued recording from behind the store window. "Both of you step away from the vehicle," Dawson said. Vanessa moved first, keeping her hands visible. Valerie followed, leaving the coffee cups on the concrete barrier. "Are we being detained?" Valerie asked. "You already asked that. And you never answered." Dawson pointed toward the front of the patrol car. "Stand over there." Vanessa looked at Bennett. "Has the supervisor acknowledged the request?" Bennett checked his radio. "Yes. Estimated arrival is 7 minutes." Dawson turned sharply. "You are not discussing department communications with them." Bennett held his position. "They asked whether a supervisor was coming. And I said the situation was under control." Valerie glanced at the blinking body camera. "A situation is not under control when the facts have been confirmed and the detention continues anyway." Dawson walked toward the rear passenger door of the SUV. "I am conducting a protective inspection." Vanessa's voice remained even. "A protective inspection for what danger?" He did not answer. His hand closed around the door handle, but the vehicle was locked. "Unlock it." "I do not consent to a search," Vanessa said. "I am not asking for consent." "Then identify the legal authority you are relying on." His eyes narrowed. "You keep pushing this, and I will place both of you under arrest for obstruction." The words hung beneath the fluorescent lights. No one moved. Valerie looked directly at her sister. Their eyes met for a brief second, carrying the same message they had shared since childhood whenever fear entered a room before reason did. "Stay steady. Remember everything." Vanessa turned back to Dawson. "What specific action are you calling obstruction?" "Your refusal to cooperate." "Cooperation does not require surrendering constitutional rights." Dawson reached toward the handcuffs on his belt, not drawing them but making the threat visible. Bennett stepped forward. "Officer Dawson, there is no basis for an arrest. Return to the cruiser. The records are clear." "That is an order." Bennett did not move. The distance between the two officers seemed to widen even though they stood only a few feet apart. Dawson looked toward Raphael and raised his voice. "Stop recording and come outside." Raphael shook his head behind the glass. "I am staying inside, and the security system is recording automatically." A customer near pump 3 lifted her phone as well. Dawson's gaze moved from one camera to another, and Vanessa saw the moment he understood that he no longer controlled the record. He turned back to the SUV. "What is in the locked case?" Valerie answered with deliberate clarity. "Protected judicial materials." "Prove it." "You have no authority to demand access to sealed court property." "Then show me identification." Valerie reached slowly toward the inner pocket of her coat. Dawson immediately raised one hand. "Stop. Keep your hands visible." She froze. "You asked for identification. I did not tell you to reach." Valerie lowered her hand again. "Then explain how you expect me to provide it." His jaw tightened. The same trap he had created for Vanessa now stood in front of him again. Every request became suspicious the moment they tried to comply. Every refusal became evidence only because he wanted it to be. Bennett looked down at his handheld device, then back at Dawson. "Supervisor is 5 minutes out." Vanessa felt a faint vibration against her wrist. Her emergency alert had been received. One confirmation signal. No message. No visible rescue. Just proof that someone now knew exactly where she was. Valerie's phone vibrated inside her coat a moment later. Dawson heard it. "Do not touch that phone." "I was not going to," she said. "Who is contacting you?" "You have no legal right to that information." He stepped closer to the locked rear door. "Last chance. Open the vehicle." Vanessa stood beneath the cold white light, her face calm, her voice lower than before. "Officer Dawson, your partner has confirmed the car is mine. You have confirmed there are no warrants. Multiple cameras are recording. A supervisor is already coming. If you continue now, it will not be because you lack the facts. It will be because the facts are no longer useful to the conclusion you want." Dawson held Vanessa's gaze, but her words had taken away the last excuse he could call confusion. Bennett's corrected search still glowed on the handheld screen. The registration was valid. The license was clear. The supervisor was approaching. Yet Dawson turned toward the locked SUV as if determination could create evidence where none existed. "You are both being detained for interfering with an active investigation," he said. Valerie's expression remained steady. "What investigation?" "Possible possession of restricted government property. You created that suspicion after the vehicle check cleared." Dawson pointed toward the rear window. "There are secured devices and a sealed case inside. Lawful property does not become suspicious because you cannot access it," Vanessa said. Dawson moved toward the driver's door and reached for the handle. It remained locked. "Open it." "I do not consent." His voice hardened. "I am ordering you." "Then state the lawful basis for the order." Bennett took another step forward. "Officer Dawson, we should wait for Captain Grant." Dawson turned on him. "You are done speaking." "No, sir. The car is valid. There is no stolen vehicle alert, no warrant, and no report connecting these women to a crime." The younger officer's voice was quieter than Dawson's, but it carried farther beneath the canopy. Raphael opened the convenience store door just enough to make his words clear. "The station cameras have been recording the entire time." Dawson faced him. "Go back inside." Raphael stayed behind the glass door, his phone raised. "I am inside." A woman near Pump 3 continued recording from beside her sedan. Another customer remained near the air machine, watching without speaking. The scene had become larger than Dawson's authority, and everyone could feel it. He reached toward the handcuffs on his belt again. "Vanessa Carter, turn around and place your hands behind your back." Vanessa did not move immediately. "Am I under arrest?" "You are being detained." "For refusing a search without legal cause." "For obstructing me." Valerie stepped half a pace closer, careful to leave space between herself and the officer. "She has followed every physical instruction you gave. She provided valid identification. She answered your questions. She is not blocking you or threatening anyone." Dawson looked at her. "Keep talking, and you will be detained too. Then state the conduct you believe is unlawful." His face tightened. He had expected fear, apology, or obedience without question. Instead, every accusation was being returned to him as a request for facts. Bennett lifted his radio. "Dispatch, confirm Captain Grant's arrival time." Static answered, followed by a calm voice. "Unit 12, Supervisor is approximately 3 minutes away." Dawson reached for Vanessa's wrist. She brought her hands together slowly in front of her before he could issue another command. "I will not resist," she said. "But I do not consent, and I want that stated clearly." The metal closed around one wrist with a small click. No one spoke. Rainwater gathered at the edge of the canopy and fell beside the SUV in steady drops. Valerie watched her sister's face, and Vanessa looked back at her. Their eyes met. "Stay calm. Remember everything." Dawson secured the other wrist, then turned toward Valerie. "Now give me the key to the case." "No, your sister is already detained. That does not give you authority over my property." Dawson walked to the rear door and examined the lock through the glass. "If you refuse to open it, I will access it myself." Valerie's phone vibrated again inside her coat. This time it continued for several seconds. Dawson looked at the pocket. "Take it out slowly." Valerie did not move. "You told me not to touch it. Now I am telling you to remove it. May I use my right hand?" The question sounded simple, but the trap was visible to everyone. Dawson hesitated, then nodded. Valerie reached slowly into her coat and removed the phone. The screen displayed an incoming security verification request. She did not unlock it. Dawson held out his hand. "Give it to me." "No, that is a direct order. It contains protected judicial communications." Bennett's eyes moved from the phone to the sealed case in the SUV. "Sir, stop. We need to wait." Dawson ignored him and pointed toward the hood. "Put the phone down." Valerie placed it beside the 2 cooling coffee cups. A faint red signal began blinking at the top of the screen. Somewhere beyond the station, a response system had confirmed her location. Vanessa looked toward the dark interstate and heard engines approaching through the rain. Dawson heard them too. He glanced toward the entrance, expecting Captain Grant's patrol car. Instead, two dark federal vehicles turned beneath the canopy, followed by a marked sport utility vehicle from the United States Marshals Service. The vehicles stopped beneath the canopy without sirens. Their headlights washed across the wet pavement, turning the rain into pale silver threads. Dawson kept one hand near Vanessa's restrained wrists and stared toward the doors as if he could still decide what the arrival meant. The marked vehicle opened first. Deputy Marshal Claire Monroe stepped out wearing a dark raincoat over her uniform, her expression focused and controlled. From the second vehicle came two federal agents, followed by a broad-shouldered man in a charcoal suit who looked immediately toward Vanessa. No one rushed. No one raised a weapon. Their calm changed the atmosphere more completely than shouting could have. Monroe's eyes moved from Valerie's phone on the hood to the locked government case inside the SUV, then to Vanessa standing beside Dawson. "Judge Carter," she said, "are you safe?" Dawson's face shifted. He looked at Valerie as though the woman before him had become someone else. She had not. Her posture was the same. Her voice, when she answered, remained measured. "I am not injured. My sister is being detained without a stated legal basis." The man in the charcoal suit approached Vanessa and stopped several feet away. "Special Agent Carter, was the emergency signal intentional?" Vanessa met his eyes. "Yes, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Marcus Hale." The vehicle registration was confirmed valid. Officer Dawson continued the detention and attempted to obtain access to protected property. Dawson looked from one woman to the other. They never identified themselves. Hale turned toward him. Were their occupations necessary to determine whether the vehicle was stolen? Dawson opened his mouth, but Bennett answered first. "No, sir. The plate was entered incorrectly. I corrected it." The vehicle came back registered to Vanessa Carter. Her license was clear. The words fell into the silence one at a time. Monroe stepped toward Valerie's phone, careful not to touch it. "Your missed security check triggered an automatic verification request. When the device remained locked and stationary beside an active law enforcement body camera signal, our office dispatched the nearest unit." Valerie nodded. "The phone has not been opened." "Good." Hale looked toward Dawson's body camera. "Is that recording?" Bennett replied. "Yes. Mine is recording too." Raphael opened the store door and spoke from behind the threshold. "The station cameras have the entire encounter. I also recorded from inside." The woman near pump 3 raised her phone slightly. "So did I." Dawson looked around at the cameras, witnesses, and federal vehicles, and the certainty he had carried all night began to collapse under the weight of a record he no longer controlled. "I was investigating suspicious circumstances," he said. Vanessa's restrained hands remained still in front of her. "The suspicious circumstance was an incorrect number you refused to correct. There were secured phones and a locked case." Valerie faced him. "Those items became your justification only after the stolen vehicle claim failed." Captain Samuel Grant's patrol car arrived at the edge of the station. He stepped out, taking in the federal vehicles, the witnesses, and the tension beneath the canopy. "Officer Dawson, explain the detention." Dawson looked toward Bennett, but the younger officer did not rescue him. "The registration was valid," Bennett said. "There was no active alert, no warrant, and no identified crime. I requested a supervisor after Officer Dawson continued the stop." Grant's gaze moved to the restraints. "Remove them." Dawson hesitated. Hale's expression did not change. "Captain Grant gave you a lawful instruction." Dawson reached for the key. The metal released with 2 quiet clicks. Vanessa brought her hands forward but did not rub her wrists or show relief. She looked first at Valerie, then at Bennett, and finally at every camera surrounding the pumps. "Do not stop recording," she said. "This moment did not become wrong only after you learned who we are." Captain Grant stepped beneath the canopy and looked from Dawson to Bennett before turning toward the federal officials. "No one leaves until the scene is documented," he said. Hale nodded once. "Agreed. We need voluntary preservation of every recording, including both body cameras, the patrol computer, dispatch traffic, and the station security system. Raphael remained near the store entrance with his phone still raised. "The manager can authorize the security footage," he said. "I already called him." Monroe approached the black SUV and studied the locked case through the rear window. "Judge Carter, is that the protected court container assigned to your chambers?" "Yes." "Has anyone opened or handled it?" Valerie shook her head. "No one has entered the vehicle." Officer Dawson demanded access several times, but the doors remained locked. Dawson immediately spoke. "I never opened the case." "That is correct," Valerie said. "But you threatened to access it after being informed it contained protected judicial materials." Her accuracy left no room for exaggeration and no room for denial. Hale turned toward Vanessa. "Your emergency signal began recording location data at 12:17. Did you activate it because you believed the situation was escalating?" "Yes." The registration had already been confirmed, but Officer Dawson continued searching for a new justification to detain us. Grant looked toward Bennett. "Is that consistent with what you observed?" Bennett took a breath. The rain tapped softly against the patrol car roof while every face turned toward him. "Yes, Captain. The original plate entry was incorrect. I corrected it and confirmed the vehicle belonged to Vanessa Carter." Officer Dawson refused to end the stop. He then focused on the secured phones and the locked case. Dawson stared at him. "Choose your words carefully." Bennett looked back at his senior officer, and whatever fear had held him earlier seemed to settle into something firmer. "I am." Grant's expression hardened. "Officer Dawson, do not address him again unless I ask you a direct question." Monroe retrieved a small evidence camera from her vehicle and photographed Valerie's phone where it rested beside the cooling coffee. She documented the screen without touching it, then moved around the SUV, recording the condition of every door and window. Hale asked Raphael to leave the store system running without deleting or overwriting anything. The witnesses near the pumps gave their names and contact information. The night was becoming a chain of facts, each link preserved before memory could soften it. Dawson stood beside the patrol car, silent now, while Grant removed his access card to the vehicle computer. "You are temporarily relieved of duty pending review," the captain said. "Turn over your department phone and remain available for an official interview." Dawson's face changed. "You are suspending me because they have federal titles." Vanessa answered before Grant could. "No. He is suspending you because the cameras do not." Hale looked toward her, understanding the distinction immediately. Titles had brought attention, but they had not created the evidence. The record existed because Bennett corrected the plate, Raphael kept filming, the body cameras stayed active, and Vanessa refused to let fear rewrite what happened. Monroe opened a secure tablet and entered the identification number connected to Valerie's locked case. A result appeared, and her eyes narrowed. "This container is linked to a sealed civil rights review involving traffic stops along this corridor." Grant looked at her. "This department." The filing names the Westfield Police Department. Dawson took one slow step backward. Monroe continued reading. "There are 3 sworn statements alleging unlawful vehicle detentions, unsupported searches, and reports written after the fact to justify the stops." She paused, then looked directly at him. "Officer Brent Dawson is identified in all 3 statements." The gas station fell silent. Bennett lowered his eyes toward the wet pavement. Grant's face lost its remaining color. Dawson opened his mouth, but no defense came. Valerie stood beside her sister, the winter-cold coffee untouched behind them. "Tonight did not create the pattern," Vanessa said quietly. It revealed it. For several seconds, no one moved. The 3 sworn statements now seemed to stand beneath the gas station canopy with them, invisible but impossible to ignore. Captain Grant looked toward Dawson with an expression that had changed from authority to disbelief. "Were you aware of these complaints?" he asked. Dawson's answer came too quickly. "Complaints are not proof." Valerie remained beside the SUV, her voice measured. "That is why evidence must be preserved before conclusions are reached." Monroe nodded and entered a formal preservation request into her secure tablet. "The sealed review will remain under court control. Judge Carter will have no involvement in any decision connected to tonight." Valerie looked at her. I will recuse myself immediately from every matter involving this department or Officer Dawson. Dawson stared at her. You are stepping away even after what happened. Especially after what happened, she replied. Justice cannot be trusted if personal anger controls the process. Hale turned toward Vanessa. Your office will also need a conflict review. I will provide a full witness statement and remove myself from any investigative or charging decision, Vanessa said. There was no hesitation in her answer. The two sisters had every reason to be angry, yet neither reached for the power attached to her position. They asked only for the same thing Dawson had denied them, a fair process built on facts. Grant motioned toward Bennett. I need your body camera and a written account before the end of this shift. Bennett removed the camera carefully and handed it to the captain. I will give a complete statement. His eyes moved toward Vanessa. I should have challenged the stop earlier. She studied him for a moment. You corrected the plate. But I knew the facts were clear before I spoke strongly enough. Then do not soften that in your report, Valerie said. Accountability begins when the truth includes your own delay. Bennett nodded. The words did not excuse him, but they gave him a direction forward. Raphael stepped outside after receiving authorization from the station manager. He carried a small storage drive and a clear evidence sleeve. This contains the security footage from every camera covering the pumps, he said. The system also keeps a backup on a remote server. Hale accepted the information but did not touch the drive until the transfer form was completed. The woman from Pump 3 provided her recording voluntarily, followed by the customer near the air machine. Each witness added another angle, another timestamp, another barrier against denial. Dawson watched the evidence accumulate. I made a judgment call, he said at last. Vanessa faced him. A judgment call changes when new facts arrive. You received the correct registration, a clear license, your partner's warning, and noticed that a supervisor was coming. You continued anyway. You were evasive. We answered every question connected to the vehicle. Valerie looked toward the locked case. You treated our refusal to surrender protected information as proof of guilt. Grant removed Dawson's department phone and access card. You are relieved of duty pending an independent review. You will not access any department system, contact witnesses, or alter any report connected to this stop. Dawson's shoulders lowered slightly. For the first time that night, he looked less angry than uncertain. What happens now? Hale answered. The evidence is reviewed by people who were not part of this encounter. Monroe added, the prior complaints will be examined alongside tonight's record. Dawson looked toward Vanessa and Valerie, perhaps expecting satisfaction. He found none. Vanessa retrieved her license and registration after they were photographed and logged. Valerie picked up the 2 coffee cups, now completely cold, and placed them in the trash. The ordinary gesture softened the scene without erasing it. Do not apologize because you discovered our titles, Vanessa said. Understand why we should never have needed them. Rainwater slipped from the canopy in slow, even drops. Dawson lowered his eyes. No one demanded an answer. The cameras, the witnesses, and the record had already begun to speak more clearly than he could. 14 months later, morning sunlight rested across the stone steps of the federal courthouse as Vanessa and Valerie Carter walked toward the entrance side by side. Neither sister wore an expression of victory. The investigation had been too long, too careful, and too painful for celebration. Every body camera file, dispatch recording, vehicle computer entry, witness video, and prior complaint had been reviewed by an independent team. The evidence showed that the gas station stop had not been an isolated mistake. It had followed a pattern. Drivers had been questioned without clear cause, searches had continued after records came back clean, and reports had sometimes been written in language that made unlawful decisions appear reasonable after the fact. Dawson was dismissed from the department. He was later convicted of federal civil rights violations and falsifying official records connected to several stops, including the one involving the sisters. The sentence came from a judge who had no personal connection to Vanessa, Valerie, or the Westfield Police Department. Valerie had formally removed herself from every related matter. Vanessa had given her witness statement, surrendered her emergency alert data, and stepped away from all investigative decisions. They had insisted on distance because justice could not become revenge simply because the harm was personal. Bennett testified openly. He admitted that he had recognized the problem before he acted strongly enough to stop it. His honesty exposed failures in supervision, reporting, and officer intervention training. Captain Grant ordered an outside audit of the department, and new rules required officers to intervene when a colleague continued an unlawful detention. Complaints could no longer be closed without independent review, and body camera footage had to be preserved automatically whenever a supervisor was requested. Bennett remained with the department, but his role changed. He began training new officers on the cost of silent obedience. "I thought staying quiet kept me neutral," he told one class. "It only made the wrong decision easier." After the final hearing, Vanessa and Valerie returned to Westfield Fuel Station. The sky was clear this time, and the concrete beneath the canopy was dry. Rafael Ortiz stood behind the counter, arranging coffee cups in the same place where he had been working that night. When he saw the sisters, he came around the counter and stopped in front of them. "I almost put my phone down," he admitted. He sounded so certain. Vanessa smiled gently. "Certainty is not the same as truth." Valerie placed a small framed letter of recognition on the counter. It thanked Rafael for preserving evidence and cooperating with investigators. He looked at it, then toward the security camera above the entrance. "I did not do anything special." "You refused to look away," Valerie said. That was enough to change what happened next. Outside, Bennett waited beside a patrol car. He was there for coffee, not official business. He approached the sisters carefully. "I owe you an apology." Vanessa looked at him. "An apology matters only if it changes what you do." "It has," he said. Valerie nodded once. There was no easy forgiveness, but there was room for accountability to become action. The sisters returned to their SUV as the first light of day stretched across the highway. Vanessa opened the driver's door, then paused. "Father would have said we should have bought fresh coffee before leaving." Valerie laughed softly. "He would have bought 3 cups and forgotten where he put one." For the first time, the memory of that night felt smaller than the lesson it had left behind. Their titles had forced the system to pay attention, but the truth should never have required a federal badge or a judicial office to matter. Justice is not proven by how power treats the important. It is proven by how power treats the unknown. As the sisters drove away beneath the clear morning sky, one question remained: when you see authority cross the line, will you stay silent because speaking feels risky, or will you become the witness who keeps the truth alive?